After my family said there was no room for me and my daughter at Christmas, they had the audacity to show up at my door a week later asking for my help, after everything they'd done. It started on Christmas Eve. The snow was coming down in lazy flakes, coating the streets of my Ohio town in a soft, deceptive peace. I'd spent the whole week prepping Lily's little dress, wrapping the gifts I'd saved up for, telling her how Grandma's hot cocoa was the best in the world. She was 6, still at that age where Christmas feels like magic, where family is supposed to mean warmth. I drove us to my parents' colonial house, the same one that glowed in every childhood memory I had, with wreaths in every window and the smell of pine and sugar cookies that used to cling to the air. But the moment I pulled into the driveway, something felt off. Too many cars. Candace's husband's Tesla. Her in-laws' minivan. I figured maybe this year was bigger, maybe we'd all squeeze in, laugh too loud, fight over pie like always. I didn't even make it to the porch before the front door opened and Candace stood there, her perfect red sweater matching her lipstick, the kind of polish that made me instantly aware of the thrift store coat I was wearing. "Hey," I said, smiling through the cold. "We made it." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Dad said, "There's no room this year, Harper." I laughed because what else could you do? "No room? You live in a 5-bedroom house." She glanced behind her. I could see the warm lights, the movement inside, laughter, the clinking of glasses. "It's just complicated. We've got Tom's parents staying, and with the kids." "Candace," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom would never." "Mom's not here anymore," she cut in softly, like she was the victim. "I'm sorry, Harp. Maybe next year, okay?" And then she closed the door. Lily looked up at me, confusion wrinkling her little forehead. "Are we not going in, Mommy?" I told her we'd do our own Christmas, that Grandma must have just gotten mixed up this year. My voice cracked somewhere in there, but I smiled anyway. I put the car in reverse, my hands shaking on the wheel, and drove us back through the glowing streets that suddenly felt like they belonged to everyone else but us. That night, in our tiny apartment with the broken heater, we made pancakes shaped like stars and cut paper snowflakes to tape on the windows. Lily giggled every time hers tore, and I laughed too, pretending everything was fine. But when she fell asleep under our secondhand blanket, I sat in the dark scrolling through social media, seeing my family's photos. Candace's kids opening presents, Dad smiling by the fire. It hit me then. I wasn't part of them anymore. And maybe deep down, I never really had been. That night, the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the old heater and the wind pushing against the windows. Harper tucked Lily into bed, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. "Did Grandma forget us?" Lily asked, her voice soft and sleepy. Harper smiled the best she could and said, "Of course not, sweetheart. She's just busy in heaven this year." Lily nodded, believing her, and closed her eyes. When Lily drifted off, Harper sat at the small kitchen table with a cup of cocoa that had gone cold. The Christmas lights she'd strung across the window blinked unevenly, one bulb already burned out. She stared at the tree they'd built together from a box of second-hand decorations. It looked nothing like the big one at her parents' house, but Lily had called it perfect. Harper tried to believe that too. She opened her phone and began scrolling through old photos. There was one from the year Lily was born, her mom holding the baby, both of them smiling like the world was safe and full of love. Another photo showed the whole family in matching pajamas, Candace in the middle, always the favorite, Dad with his arm around her like she was the only daughter he had. Harper remembered that night. How she'd been asked to take the picture, not be in it. At the time she thought nothing of it. Now it felt like the truth had been sitting there all along. She kept scrolling until she hit a video from 2 Christmases ago. Her mother's laugh filled the room, that warm, steady sound that used to make everything feel okay. Harper tapped the screen again, just to hear it one more time. But when she put the phone down, it slipped from her hand and hit the floor, starting a random playback of old voicemails. The sound startled her, her mother's voice again, quieter this time. "Don't let them push you out, Harper. Promise me." Harper froze. She remembered that call. It was a few weeks before her mom passed. They'd argued that day, about Candace taking control of the bills, about the will, about Harper not visiting enough. But her mom had ended the call with those exact words. Harper hadn't thought about them since. Now they echoed through the small kitchen like a warning that came too late. She replayed the message once more, then turned the phone face down. Tears slid down her cheeks before she could stop them. She didn't sob. She just sat there quietly, feeling something heavy shift inside her. Not anger, not even sadness, something colder, like the start of resolve. She looked toward Lily's room. Her daughter was sleeping with one arm around the stuffed bear her grandmother had given her. Harper realized how easily they'd both been erased from the family, like they were just an afterthought. But her mother hadn't forgotten her. That message proved it. Harper stood, wiped her face, and went to the window. Snow was falling again, covering the streetlight outside in soft white. She whispered to herself, "I won't let them push us out." The lights flickered once more, the apartment dim but calm. Harper turned off her phone, unplugged the tree lights, and went to lie beside Lily. Her daughter stirred, half asleep, and mumbled, "Is it Christmas again tomorrow?" Harper kissed her forehead and whispered, "No, baby. But next year, it'll be ours." A week passed since that cold Christmas night. Harper tried not to think about it, focusing on work and keeping Lily cheerful. The decorations still hung in the apartment, though the lights were starting to fade. She thought the silence meant peace, until someone knocked on her door one gray morning. When she opened it, she saw her father standing there, his hands shoved into his coat pockets, and beside him was Candace, dressed neatly as always. Harper felt her chest tighten. For a moment, she thought maybe they'd come to apologize. Maybe they'd realized how cruel that night had been. But her father's first words made her heart sink. "Harper, we need your help," he said, avoiding her eyes. "We're cleaning out your mother's storage unit this weekend. Thought you might want to take a few things." Candace added quickly, "We've already started, but it's a lot to go through. You can come by and grab whatever's left before it's gone." Harper stared at them. No apology. No mention of Christmas. Just a task, like she was a helper, not family. Still, the thought of her mother's things tugged at her. She nodded slowly and said she'd come. The storage unit sat at the edge of town, rows of gray metal doors lined up under a dull sky. When Harper arrived, she saw Candace's car already there. Boxes were stacked in neat piles, most sealed with bright tape marked in her sister's tidy handwriting. For Candace, keep, Mom's china. Inside, Harper's father was sorting through papers while Candace gave instructions like she was running the place. "Oh, you're here," Candace said flatly, not even looking up. "Most of it's spoken for, but you can check that corner." She pointed toward a few leftover boxes near the back wall. Harper crouched down, her fingers brushing against an old quilt, a chipped mug, a few photo albums. Then she noticed a small envelope wedged between two boxes. Her mother's handwriting was unmistakable, soft, looping letters that spelled, "For my Harper and Lily." Her heart raced. She turned the envelope over carefully, almost afraid to open it. Inside was a folded note on yellow paper. The words were simple but full of love. Her mother wrote about how proud she was of Harper, how she wanted Lily to have her jewelry box someday, and how family should never be decided by anyone else. Before Harper could finish reading, Candace's voice cut through the quiet. "What's that?" Harper stood, the letter trembling in her hand. "Mom wrote this for me," she said, her voice shaking. "For me and Lily." Candace walked over, her heels clicking against the concrete. She glanced at the note and gave a dry laugh. "Mom changed her will, Harper. Everything sentimental came to me. You really need to let go of this idea that she favored you." Harper stared at her sister, disbelief turning into anger. "She wrote this herself. You can't just take everything that reminds me of her." Candace shrugged. "The lawyer handled it. You can have whatever junk's left, but the rest is mine. It's what Mom wanted." Their father tried to speak, but Harper couldn't hear him. Her pulse was loud in her ears. Candace turned away, waving a hand like the conversation was over. Harper looked around at the stacks of boxes. Her mother's life divided and claimed like property. Her hands clenched around the note. For the first time, she didn't feel sadness. She felt something sharper, steady and cold. She folded the letter carefully and slipped it into her coat pocket. Without another word, she walked out into the winter air, her breath fogging in front of her. Behind her, the storage door clattered shut, but in her mind, something far louder had begun to open. That night, after putting Lily to sleep, Harper sat alone at the kitchen table with the folded note she'd found in her mother's storage unit. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. She opened the paper slowly, smoothing out the creases with her hands. Her mother's handwriting was shaky but clear. "Give Lily my jewelry box and the family ornament," the note said. "They belong with her, so she'll always know where she comes from." Harper's throat tightened. She pictured the small wooden box her mother used to keep on her dresser, the one with a tiny bird carved into the lid. and the glass ornament that had hung on their tree every Christmas since Harper was a child. Both were gone. She hadn't seen either in the boxes at the storage unit. She checked her phone, scrolling through photos from last year. In one, her mother was sitting beside that same jewelry box, smiling. Harper zoomed in. The little bird was there, carved and shining. It wasn't just a decoration. It was a memory her mother wanted Lily to have. The next morning, Harper called Mr. Yates, the family lawyer who had handled her mother's estate. He'd always been kind to her, more patient than most people around her family. When he answered, his voice sounded surprised. "Harper, I didn't expect to hear from you. How are you holding up?" "I need to ask about Mom's will," Harper said quickly. "Candace told me it was changed before she died." "Is that true?" There was a long pause before he replied. "A revised version was filed, yes. But I never met with your mother to sign it. Your sister brought it in after her passing. I assumed your mother had signed it earlier." Harper's fingers tightened around the phone. "So you never actually saw her sign it?" "No," he said, his tone cautious now. "But I was told it was done while she was still coherent." "Why do you ask?" "I found a letter," Harper said. "In her handwriting. She said the jewelry box and the ornament were meant for Lily. Those items are missing. Candace has them." Mr. Yates sighed quietly. "That's concerning, Harper. Your mother mentioned those things to me once, said they were special to your daughter. The timing of the will change was unusual. It came in just weeks before she passed." "Could it be fake?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "I can't say for sure without evidence," he finally said. "But the signature on that last document never sat right with me. It looked off. Still, I can't take action unless there's proof." Harper leaned back in her chair, staring at the wall. "If someone forged it, that's illegal, right?" "Yes," he said carefully. "But it's also difficult to prove. Do you still have anything written by your mother from around that time?" Harper looked down at the letter on the table. "I do now. Keep it safe," Mr. Yates said. "Don't tell anyone you spoke to me yet. If something was done behind your back, you'll need more than one piece of paper to show it." After the call ended, Harper sat in silence, the letter lying in front of her like a piece of truth she wasn't supposed to find. She felt the anger return, quiet but steady, like a pulse beneath her ribs. She folded the note again and slipped it into an envelope. If her sister had lied about the will, then she had also stolen more than just keepsakes. Harper looked toward Lily's room and whispered to herself, "I'll find out what really happened, Mom. I promise." Harper began her search quietly, without telling anyone what she was doing. Each night, after Lily fell asleep, she sat at the small kitchen table surrounded by folders, old mail, and her mother's notebooks. The letter she had found stayed tucked inside a book near her hand, reminding her why she was doing this. She started with the paperwork she'd brought home from the storage unit. Old bills, receipts, and hospital notes filled several boxes. Most of it was routine, medical appointments, pharmacy slips, donation forms. But mixed in were strange gaps. A few pages looked out of order, and some signatures didn't match her mother's careful handwriting. Harper opened her laptop and began reading through old emails that her mother had forwarded to her months before she died. Most were short notes between her and Candace, updates about medication, appointments, and financial matters. One message caught her eye. It was sent only 3 weeks before her mother passed. Candace had written, "Make sure Mom signs the update before she forgets again." The words made Harper's stomach twist. She reread it several times, trying to make sense of it. The update could only mean the will. And the phrase, "before she forgets again," suggested something worse. Her mother's memory was slipping, and Candace knew it. Harper checked the timestamp. The message was sent at 10:14 p.m., a time when her mother would usually be asleep. Candace must have stayed over that night. Harper remembered her mother mentioning that Candace liked to handle things near the end because Harper was too emotional. Now it sounded like manipulation, not help. The next afternoon, Harper drove to her mother's old neighborhood. She hadn't been back since the funeral. The houses looked smaller, the lawns bare under the winter frost. She parked outside Mrs. Lang's home, her mother's elderly neighbor who used to bring soup and cookies during the bad days. Mrs. Lang welcomed her in with a soft smile. "You look tired, dear," she said. "You've got your mother's eyes." They sat in the living room, surrounded by faded photographs and the smell of peppermint tea. Harper hesitated before asking, "Do you remember if my sister ever came by before Mom passed? With papers or anything like that?" Mrs. Lang frowned, thinking, "Oh yes, Candace was here a lot. Your mother told me once that she'd taken her important documents for safekeeping, though she didn't seem happy about it. She said she'd rather keep them herself, but Candace insisted it was safer at her house. Harper's chest tightened. Did she ever mention what kind of documents? Something about her will, I think, Mrs. Lang said. She seemed confused about whether she'd already signed it or not. She told me. Candace says I did, but I don't remember doing it. Those words hit Harper like a punch. She thanked Mrs. Lang, trying to keep her voice calm, but her hands shook as she held her tea. On the drive home, her thoughts raced. Candace hadn't just taken advantage of their mother's trust. She'd used her fading memory to take control. That night, Harper laid everything out on the table again. The emails, the letter, the statements, all forming a line that pointed in one direction. It wasn't just greed, it was cruelty hidden under family duty. Her sister had stolen not only keepsakes but her mother's voice, twisting her confusion into a convenient signature. Harper stared at the scattered pages under the dim light and whispered, "You thought no one would notice, Candace. But I see it now." The anger didn't burn hot. It was quiet, deliberate. She began to take photos of everything, labeling each one, creating her own record. If no one believed her, the proof would speak for itself. She didn't know how yet, but she was going to make this right. Harper didn't sleep much after that night. Every time she closed her eyes, her mother's voice from that old voicemail came back, steady, kind, and asking her not to let anyone push her out. The pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to make sense. She could see what Candace had done, but anger alone wouldn't change anything. If she wanted the truth to matter, she had to stay calm and think clearly. The next morning, she called Mr. Yates again. He sounded cautious but listened as she explained what she'd found. Her mother's letter, the strange emails, and the neighbor's words. "It's starting to look like someone filed a will that wasn't real," she said. Mr. Yates was quiet for a long time. "You're gathering solid details," he finally said. "But without hard evidence, we can't accuse anyone yet. If you can get proof that your mother signed the original will on a different date than the one your sister submitted, that could change everything." Harper thanked him and promised to find what he needed. She hung up and opened her notebook, making a list of what to do next. Step 1, find witnesses. Step 2, collect any document that showed her mother's real signature. Step 3, stay calm no matter what. That afternoon, she reached out to a few of her mother's old church friends. Many of them had known her since Harper and Candace were children. The first person she called was Pastor Glenn. He remembered Harper's mother fondly and still sounded sad when he spoke about her. "She came to my office about 2 months before she passed," he said. "She wanted to make sure her will was signed properly. I was there when she signed it, just her and me. She seemed at peace that day." Harper's heart lifted a little. "Do you remember when that was exactly?" "I do," he said. "It was a Sunday afternoon. I wrote the date down because she asked me to bless the document afterward. It was signed on February 12th. Harper froze. Candace's version of the will claimed it was signed in late March, after their mother's memory had already worsened. "Pastor, would you be willing to put that in writing?" she asked softly. "Of course," he said. "Your mother wanted everything to be fair. I'll do what's right." Over the next few days, Harper collected more evidence. One church friend found an old photo from that February day. Her mother smiling at the church office desk, pen in hand, the papers spread neatly before her. The date was printed clearly in the photo's file details. Harper saved it immediately. With every piece she found, her confidence grew. She scanned the letter, the email screenshots, and the neighbor's statement, organizing them into a folder labeled Mom's Truth. Then she called Mr. Yates again and told him she was ready. He suggested arranging a family mediation session so everything could be addressed properly. "It's the best way to keep this civil," he said. "If your sister has something to hide, it will come out." Harper agreed. She knew Candace would expect her to yell, to lose control, to look bitter and emotional. But that wasn't the plan anymore. The real revenge would come from staying steady while the facts spoke for themselves. That night, Harper tucked Lily into bed and sat by the window watching the snow fall. The light outside was dim and still. She thought about her mother, about how she always believed truth had its own strength if you gave it time. Harper smiled faintly. Time was exactly what she'd used, and now, she was ready to let it work. The day of the family meeting arrived with heavy gray clouds hanging over the sky. Harper drove to her father's house with her folder of documents resting on the passenger seat. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. She wasn't scared anymore, just steady. Whatever happened inside that house, she was ready to face it. When she stepped through the front door, the smell of coffee and furniture polish brought back too many memories. The living room looked the same as always, neat and perfect, but the air felt tense. Candace was already there, sitting at the dining table beside their father. She looked calm, even smug, like she was expecting Harper to admit guilt for causing trouble. "Finally," Candace said with a forced smile. "I hope this isn't going to take all day. We're just here to clear up some confusion." Harper placed the folder on the table and sat down. "That's what I want too," she said quietly. Their father, Richard, cleared his throat. "Girls, I don't want another argument. Let's just sort this out like family." Harper nodded and opened the folder. "I brought a few things that might help." Candace crossed her arms. "Harper, this is unnecessary. Mom's will was already settled." Ignoring her, Harper slid a printed email across the table. "This is from you," she said. "You wrote, 'Make sure Mom signs the update before she forgets again.'" Candace's face stiffened. "That's not what it looks like," she said quickly. "You're twisting my words." Harper didn't reply. She placed another paper down, a statement from Mrs. Lang describing how their mother had been unsure whether she'd signed anything. Then came the photo, showing their mother at the church office, smiling as she signed the original will. The date printed at the bottom was clear. Their father leaned forward, squinting. "Wait, this says February," he muttered. "Candace, didn't you tell me she signed it in March?" Candace shifted uncomfortably. "That picture doesn't prove anything. Anyone could have taken it." Harper took out the letter last, the one written in their mother's shaky but unmistakable handwriting. "Mom wrote this for me and Lily," she said softly. She wanted Lily to have her jewelry box and the family ornament. She made that clear. Candace gave a cold laugh. "You can't just bring a random note and claim it's official." Harper met her eyes. "It's her handwriting. You know it is." Then, with a calm voice, she read aloud one line from the letter. "Give Lily the box. She'll need to remember who she is." The room fell silent. Even the ticking clock on the wall seemed to stop. Her father looked down at the table, his jaw tight. "Candace," he said slowly, Did you take the will?" Candace's expression cracked for the first time. "I didn't take it. I fixed it," she snapped. Mom didn't know what she was doing anymore. "I made sure things went how they should." Harper's father sank back in his chair, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You forged your mother's will?" Candace stood abruptly, her voice rising. "I was protecting her legacy. Harper always made her feel guilty. Someone had to make decisions." Harper stayed seated, calm but cold. "You didn't protect her, Candace. You erased her." No one spoke after that. Her father didn't defend Candace this time. He just stared at her like he didn't recognize her. Candace grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the front door so hard the frame shook. Harper gathered her papers and stood. Her father looked up at her, his voice low. "I didn't know," he said. "I know," Harper answered quietly. "But now you do." She left the house without looking back. The cold air hit her face, and she took a deep breath. For the first time in years, she felt something close to peace. Not because she'd won, but because the truth was finally out in the open. The week after the confrontation felt slow and heavy. Harper thought she would finally rest, but instead, her phone kept ringing. Mr. Yates called first. His voice was calm but serious. "I reviewed everything you sent," he said. "The photo, the letter, and the church record all match. There's no question, the will your sister filed was fake." Hearing those words didn't bring joy. It brought silence. Harper thanked him quietly and asked what came next. Mr. Yates explained that he had already submitted the evidence for legal review. The process would take time, but the truth was now official. Candace's forgery wasn't just a mistake, it was a crime. A few days later, Harper received a call from her father. His voice sounded weaker than usual. "Honey, can we talk?" he asked. She agreed to meet him at a small cafe halfway between their homes. When she arrived, he was already sitting at a corner table, staring into his coffee. "Candace is in trouble," he said as soon as she sat down. "They're saying she could face charges." "Harper, she's your sister. Can't you just let this go?" Harper looked at him for a long moment before speaking. "Dad, I didn't start this." "She did. Mom trusted her, and she used that to take what wasn't hers. If I let it go, it would be like saying that was okay." He rubbed his temples, his eyes tired. "She'll lose everything. Her reputation, her family. She's already falling apart." "She should have thought about that before she lied," Harper said softly. "This isn't about punishing her. It's about doing what Mom asked me to do." Mom wanted fairness. He nodded but didn't respond. They sat in silence for a while. When Harper stood to leave, he reached for her hand. "You're more like your mother than you think," he said quietly. She never let anyone walk over her either. Over the next month, the situation unfolded fast. The lawyer sent Harper official confirmation that the will Candace had filed was invalid. The real one, signed in February, was restored as the legal version. The jewelry box, the family ornament, and all of their mother's personal keepsakes were legally transferred to Harper and Lily. When the news reached Candace's in-laws, it spread quickly through the small town. People who once admired her stopped calling. Her husband's parents were furious. Her friends kept their distance. Candace tried to blame Harper for ruining her life, but no one believed her. The facts were too clear. Harper didn't celebrate. She simply packed the returned items carefully and placed them in a small trunk at home. Lily helped, asking curious questions about each piece. Harper told her simple stories, about her grandmother's favorite song, her garden, her laugh. For the first time, those stories felt like they belonged to them again. When everything was done, Harper met with Mr. Yates one last time. He handed her the final papers and said, "Your mother would be proud. You handled this with grace." Harper smiled faintly. "I just did what she would have done." On her way home, she drove past her parents' old house. The yard looked quiet. Candace's car wasn't there anymore. Harper didn't stop, she just kept driving. For the first time in years, she felt free. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed, she noticed the jewelry box on the dresser catching the light. Her mother's reflection seemed to live in its shine. Harper touched it gently and whispered, "We did it, Mom." It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about peace, the kind her mother had always wanted for her. The seasons changed slowly after everything ended. Spring turned into summer, and by the time the first snow came again, Harper and Lily had built a quiet life that felt calm and steady. Their apartment was still small, but it felt warm now, filled with small touches that made it theirs. A few new curtains, a rug Lily picked out with stars on it, and the jewelry box sitting proudly on the shelf. Harper had started a new job at a small accounting office nearby. It wasn't fancy, but it paid the bills and left her time for Lily. Every evening they cooked dinner together, sometimes singing along to old songs that Harper's mother used to hum. The noise of it filled the space with something that felt like healing. As December approached, Lily began talking about Christmas again. This time, there was no trace of sadness in her voice. "Can we have a tree again?" she asked one afternoon. "A big one this year?" Harper smiled. "We'll get one together," she said. And they did. They carried home a slightly crooked tree from the local lot, laughing as they tried to fit it through the apartment door. They set it up by the window and covered it with simple decorations, paper stars, silver tinsel, and one special piece placed right at the center, the glass ornament that had belonged to her mother. It caught the glow of the string lights, throwing soft reflections across the room. Harper stood for a moment, just watching it. That little piece of her mother's love had found its way back, just like she had promised it would. A few days before Christmas, a letter arrived in the mail. The handwriting was familiar. It was from her father. He wrote that he missed them and hoped they would join him for Christmas dinner this year. He said the house would be quiet without them. Harper read it twice, then folded it and set it aside. She didn't feel angry, only sure. The silence between them said more than any reply could. Candace's name hadn't come up in months. Harper knew bits and pieces from neighbors and old friends. Her sister had moved out of town, her marriage strained, her reputation still damaged. People whispered, but Harper didn't join in. She had stopped wasting energy on what Candace did or didn't deserve. The best payback was living well and staying calm, and Harper had finally learned how to do both. On Christmas Eve, Harper and Lily made hot chocolate and played music while they finished decorating the living room. Lily hung a few of her drawings on the wall, calling them extra decorations. The air smelled of cocoa and pine. When the lights went off except for the tree, the ornament glowed softly in the dark. "Do you think Grandma can see it?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. Harper smiled, pulling her daughter close. "I think she can," she said. "And I think she's smiling right now." They sat together on the couch, watching the lights flicker. Outside, snow was falling again, quiet and endless. Harper didn't think about what she'd lost anymore. She thought about what she'd built, safety, love, and peace that belonged only to them. Her mother's jewelry box sat open on the table beside the couch, reflecting the lights from the tree. Inside it lay the ornament, shining brighter than ever. Harper reached over and closed the lid gently, whispering, "We're home now." And for the first time in years, she truly meant it. By the next winter, life looked completely different. Harper had saved every bit she could and used the settlement money to buy a small house on the edge of town. It wasn't big, but it had a yard and wide windows that filled the rooms with morning light. When she first unlocked the door, Lily ran from room to room, laughing as if she'd discovered a castle. For Harper, it was more than a house. It was a new beginning. She spent the first few weeks painting the walls and planting small shrubs by the front steps. Neighbors stopped by to welcome them, offering cookies and smiles. It felt strange to be surrounded by kindness again, but she was learning to accept it. She joined a local group for single parents, helping them plan a Christmas drive for families who were struggling. The idea reminded her of her mother, who had always found ways to help others, even when times were hard. When the event day came, the community hall was filled with laughter, food, and piles of donated gifts. Harper helped children choose presents for their parents and tied ribbons on boxes. Watching them reminded her why she had fought so hard, to give Lily a world built on care, not control. That evening, they returned home, tired but happy. Snow was falling outside, soft and steady. Lily helped set up their tree near the window. It was simple but beautiful, decorated with handmade ornaments from their new friends. From a small box, Harper took out the glass ornament that once belonged to her mother. It still glowed gently under the lights. "Can I put it on, Mommy?" Lily asked. Harper nodded. Lily stood on her tiptoes and hung it near the top branch. Then she stepped back, eyes shining. "We made our own room, didn't we?" she said proudly. Harper smiled, her heart full. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered. "We did." They sat together on the couch, watching the snow drift past the window. Harper thought of everything that had happened, the rejection, the fight, the truth finally coming out. None of it seemed to matter anymore. What mattered was this quiet moment, the peace she had built from nothing. Her mother had always told her that strength wasn't about winning. It was about standing tall when the world tried to push you down. Harper finally understood. She didn't need her family's approval anymore. She had built her own, and it was enough. Do you think I did the right thing by walking away from my family and starting over? Or should I have given them another chance? I'm honestly curious to know what you think. Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more.